Okay.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can you hear me
Okay.
okay?
You're a little faint, but I'm wondering if that's because I'm also hearing the music.
Yeah, maybe. My headset is broken. I think I need to get a new one.
Oh, just getting our just getting our book. Okay.
I don't know. Better.
It's a little better.
Only a little better.
No, no, that's actually clearer.
Okay. I'll have to just speak loud. I tend to get a bit quiet and mumbly to make
Hmm.
it effort to speak properly. Let me know if you can't hear me.
Okay.
So I feel like, I don't know, when I do that, like the senses that I am honoring this space,
Hmm.
because I feel like this space invites a certain spirit, a
Hmm.
certain spirit, the only spirit to be here, honoring
Hmm.
that. Mm. So we're on the chapter called Wisdom. Know what number it is? Chapter 9, called Wisdom, and we're on verse 84.
Okay.
So was there anything that you would like to say before we start to read?
No, just that I'm looking forward to whatever comes out of today's exchange.
Yeah, let's see. I feel like starting to read. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Also, I can't remember anything from the last time, but maybe once we start reading. But also, we don't need to remember anything. It's good to start fresh.
Okay.
That's the good thing as well about this text is like each verse is, well, maybe not each exact verse, but maybe like each few verses. You don't really have to have read the whole book. There's something in everything. So even if you just dip in, you can get some wisdom.
Agreed. Agreed.
As long as the conditions are assembled, the body will appear to be a man. As long as all the parts are likewise present, a body will appear therein. Likewise, since it is a group of fingers, the hand itself does not exist as such. And so it is with fingers made of joints, and joints themselves consist of many parts. So yeah, he was saying just the body is an idea. So he's just expanding on that. And he's making it very clear to us how is the body just an idea, because often in spirituality it's like, well, like how the body's here. But it's like that. So just like if you just see a finger by itself, it's just a finger, but only when you put everything together, it's like hands. So the same way with the body, like there's not really such thing as a body. It's just like when all of, like he said there, when everything is assembled together, we give it the name body.
It just struck me that breathing really requires, an atmosphere, an
Yeah.
environment. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. These parts themselves will break down into particles, and particles divide according to direction. These fragments too lack partless parts. They are like space. Thus, even particles have no existence. So I'm not really into science too much, but I do hear things. So like where science is at the moment is that when they break things down into like particles and then they say, I don't think they say 100%, but I think they say like 99.999% is actually there's nothing there. They won't admit yet to 100%. I'm not 100% sure also about that, but like they really say when they really look at things that everything is actually just space. There's really nothing there. Yeah. And this was written, when was this written?
Uh,
1,000 years ago.
roughly. Yeah.
So science wasn't there yet, but like science would back this up now, which is quite interesting. Maybe I should, well, it would be nice to get into the science aspect because I think where a lot of humans are at. Like we like to hear it. If it's scientific, then I can accept it. You know,
Hmm.
but a lot of stuff that's in spirituality is actually scientifically accepted. So, but I'm not the kind of person to remember the facts. So maybe you will.
Uh, I sort of occasionally will read something, but it doesn't kind of take me anywhere. It's more like
Yeah.
intellectual information. So,
Mm. All form, therefore, is like a dream, and who will be attached to it? Who thus investigates? The body in this way has no existence. What, therefore, is male and what is female? If suffering itself is truly real, why is joy not altogether quenched thereby? If pleasure is real, then why will pleasant tastes not comfort and amuse a man in agony? If the feeling fails to be experienced through being overwhelmed by something stronger, how can feeling rightly be ascribed to that which lacks the character of being felt? Perhaps you say that only subtle pain remains. Its grosser form has now been overmastered, or rather it is felt as mere pleasure. But what is subtle still remains itself. If, because its opposite is present, discomfort fails to manifest, is not the claim that it's a feeling no more than a mental imputation? Since so it is, the antidote is meditation and analysis. Absorption grown in fields of their investigation is indeed the food and sustenance of yogis. If between the sense power and a thing there is a space, how will the two terms meet? And if there is no space, they form a unity. And therefore, what is it that meets with what? No penetration can there be of particle by particle, for they are both the same in lacking volume. But if they do not penetrate, they do not merge. And if they do not merge, there's no encounter. For how could anyone accept that what is partless could be said to meet? And you must show me, if you ever saw, a contact taking place between two partless things. Consciousness is immaterial, and so one cannot speak of contact with it. A combination, too, has no reality, just as we have previously shown. If, therefore, there's no touch or contact, whence is it that feeling takes its rise? What purpose is there, then, in all our toil? For what is it, indeed, that torments what? It's good, um, I don't know, it's a good inquiry, you know, because usually if something comes up, we say, it's really like that comes down to identity. Like we believe that, like I. So if something arises like a pain, it's like, oh, I'm suffering or I feel pain. But when you really look closely, like he's suggesting, that's what like yogis, the food of yogis is like investigating. And when you really look, like maybe we'll see, a certain feeling or emotion or something, but like he's saying, like two things never meet. They can't meet. Like something arises in consciousness, you could say. Um, but really it comes down to that. Like, and that's where we suffer. Like, we don't really suffer if two different things arise in us, like um hot and cold or something. Maybe I have a hot head and a cold foot, cold feet. But like we're not gonna suffer because of that, but we're gonna suffer if I meet one of those, like, oh, my feet are too cold, or oh, my head's too hot. So like this idea, the idea that these things meet an I, like an identity, I think that's the basis of it. And he's saying really that it's impossible.
the substance, can we read 92 again? Since it is the
Yeah.
antidote is meditation and analysis, absorption grown in fields of their investigation is indeed the food and sustenance of yogis.
Mm.
The word absorption sort of.
Absorption grown in fields of their investigation. Yeah, like so they get absorbed. Maybe the idea of an eye gets absorbed, but
Mm,
it's just an idea, so it doesn't really get absorbed,
mm, mm,
I don't know why he used the word absorption. Absorption. What would absorption mean there? Well, like there's nothing really to be absorbed, really. You know, you're maybe absorbed in consciousness, but like he says, like nothing meets consciousness,
mm,
really. But maybe there's nothing really to be absorbed, so I don't know.
mm,
As an idea can be absorbed, and absorbed just means disappears. That's
mm.
my sense.
Yeah, I'm not really getting anything there. It's
Yeah,
just, no, I mean, anything feels like grasping at the moment,
yeah.
just to,
That's good. We don't really have to get anything. We get what we're meant to get and what we need to get,
mm,
and I think we just understand things. We don't really understand something new. We can't really get what we're not ready to get or something.
mm,
So, like all these things, I think it's actually really good to just listen and let
mm,
the words come in and go. And if they have an impact, they have an impact. And if they don't, they don't.
mm,
We don't need to do anything. And sometimes it's amazing. Like sometimes you can read something and like nothing, it feels like nothing is happening, like nothing lands. But when you just let it flow through you, then maybe just surprisingly, like 2 weeks later, those words just appear in your being and they reach you again. Like they just appear as a memory. Like so we really don't know what anything is for. But that's how I approach these kind of things. I don't really try to understand.
well, that's actually really refreshing, and it sort of absolves me of having to really get it.
And
I gotta
yeah, and
get it.
ultimately we're really like wanting to let go of all understanding. Like that's what causes us trouble.
Mm,
Because there's an like who you truly are doesn't need to understand anything. You're just yourself and there isn't anything else to understand. You're simply just yourself with no other. So like that effort of trying to understand is really just so you can come to that peace. So if you can give up understanding before that and not understand anything, you don't need to know anything about anything.
mm,
The only thing that understanding can do, like I think it can be good for a human, just because it can help us to not want to grasp and it can help us to not want to understand because maybe something inside feels like it's understood already, so it gives it up. Like if you really want to taste a peach, it's like I've never tasted a peach because it hasn't been available. You want to taste it, and then you taste it, like because you go to a foreign country and they have peaches there. Taste it, and it's like it's either good, like if it's good, you might want it again, so that might be unfortunate. But let's say you taste it and you don't like it, taste and you don't like it, so then like you're gonna give up that desire then, because
mm,
like okay, well I've tasted it. It wasn't actually like it didn't actually meet my um didn't meet my desire or what I thought it would give me. And that's actually a good example in a way of life because no desire really does give us what we want. And what we truly want is to be just free of desire, really.
mm.
So I don't know. If you're able to not want to understand, then I'd go with that. That's the
So
easy way, the
uh,
simple
hearing that certainly makes me feel a bit lighter, but also
one.
the phrase, certainly in American English, if something is delightful, we can say that's just peachy.
It's peachy. Yeah. Yeah.
Was it sweet? Oh, it was peachy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very American. Mhm. So yeah, the example came. It was a good example.
Yeah, excellent example.
Okay, so I'm going to start on 96. I might have read it already.
Okay.
Consciousness is immaterial, and so one cannot speak of contact with it. A combination too has no reality, just as we have previously shown. If, therefore, there's no touch or contact, whence is it that feeling takes its rise? What purpose is there then in all our toil? For what is it indeed that torments what? Since there is no subject for sensation, and sensation too lacks all existence, how is craving not arrested when all this is clearly understood? What we see and what we touch is stuff of dreams and mirages. If feeling is coincident with consciousness, it follows that it is not seen thereby. If the one arises first, the other after, memory occurs and not direct sensation. Sensation is without perception of itself, and likewise by another it is not perceived. The agent of sensation has no real existence. Thus, sensation likewise has no being. What damage, therefore, can sensation do to it, this aggregate deprived of self? The mind within the senses does not dwell. It has no place in outer things like form, and in between the mind does not abide. Not out, not in, not elsewhere can the mind be found. It is not in the body, yet is nowhere else. It does not merge with it nor stand apart. But not but, something such as this does not exist, not even slightly. Beings, by their nature, are beyond the reach of suffering. So this is a very kind of deep wisdom that he's saying. Like he's really gone beyond everything. It's not, it's like beyond the path to wisdom. It's like, because the path to wisdom is in a way is like what he says back there, like about the food of yogis is looking at everything else. So that's what like most of us on a spiritual journey are kind of looking and coming to this wisdom, but he's saying he's really speaking about like beyond, like beyond the looking and like what we're really after, like a lot of like inquiry and really looking, seeming to look, because he's saying like there's not one thing looking at another thing, but so that's most of us are at this seeming stage of seeming like it's one thing looking at another thing. And we have to go through that stage. So I think it's good to hear this wisdom and to let it come in and, if it gives a sense of peace or whatever it does. But we can't also be somewhere that we're not yet. But it's good to hear, because maybe it motivates us as well, you know. But also sometimes, in this day and age anyway, like we kind of can make up that we're there already. Like we read something and then we start to say, yeah, yeah. But really, realistically, it seems like, no, actually, I am still, something in me is suffering from this sensation. But the thing is, it's really good because let's say if there's something, say you have some sensation of just like something that doesn't feel good in your being, you know, just a bad feeling, let's say. And so you're even to call it a bad feeling, because if he wouldn't probably call it a bad feeling because he's saying there's no feeling at all. But to be exposed to this and kind of trust it, I suppose, to trust that this feeling doesn't even really exist. That's what brings our curiosity, and it gives us maybe a strength to really be with it and to look at it. And I think that's what we actually really need to do. Like we can't just take this wisdom and say, okay, like it somehow doesn't work like that. We can't just take this wisdom and say, okay, none of these sensations are here, none of this is real. Like there's no me, blah, blah, blah. We have to come to it ourselves. And we have to come to it ourselves through deeply looking at everything that seems to be there. So if this like bad feeling or like this pain or even this sense of if it seems to be here, we need to I think something needs to be willing to be curious about it and look at it and explore it until we come to that wisdom ourselves. And to come across that wisdom kind of motivates us a bit. It gives us like a reason why we would keep looking. Because I think we know, like when we hear something true, and maybe also we get little clues along the way. Like maybe, I don't know why this image is coming, but like let's say if you're hungry and you're walking along, you haven't yet found food, but you start to smell like bread, bacon somewhere, that nice smell of a bakery. Start to smell it so you can follow that smell. So it's kind of like a clue. And so I think we get those clues. So we're not kind of just on a spiritual path blindly, like something in us is being pulled. Like maybe we get little, who knows, it's different for everyone. Maybe we get moments of like really clear insight, or maybe it's just like our heart just feels totally in alignment with the words of a teacher or a text or something like that. Or, there's probably 1,000 different things that keep us going and motivate us. Um, but just hearing it is usually not enough. Like we actually have to, um, I don't know, I don't really like saying a little bit, we have to do it. We have to do what the yogis do, and we have to take the path that Shantideva took. So that's what this book is for, like the way of Bodhisattva. It's like the way, and all the other chapters up to here, he's kind of showing us the way and how we can be. And it's just kind of rooting out all the falseness. Is that what falseness is? That's crazy. Out of our mind. That was very emphasized, that word.
Well, the name the name of this chapter is Wisdom, and
Yeah,
uh, he's beginning to tie things together from the earlier chapters
yeah,
here. And what's sort of present as you're speaking, and we covered these last few verses, a sense of wonder, like,
yeah,
oh, hmm,
yeah. So this is really wisdom. This is what's going to keep us going.
hmm.
Back to the start of the book again. And going through, get to wisdom, and then it's like, oh, back to the start again. I'm quite there. Okay, let's go back again.
What
Would
was
you
I
like to
even
read a few?
thinking?
Yeah. Would you like to read a few verses?
Are we on 103?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It is not in the
Oh,
body, yet is nowhere else. It does not merge with it, nor stand apart. Something such as this does not exist, not even slightly. Beings by their nature are beyond the reach of suffering. If consciousness precedes the cognized object, with regard to what does it arise? If consciousness arises at the same time as its object, again, regarding what does it arise? If consciousness comes later than its object, once again, from what does it arise? Thus, the origin of all phenomena exceeds the reach of understanding. If this is so, you say, there is no relative, and then the two truths, what becomes of them? Moreover, if the relative derives from beings' minds, how can they pass beyond their sorrows? But that is just the thought of others. It is not what I mean by the relative. If subsequently there are thoughts, the relative is the relative's still there. If not, the relative has ceased indeed. The analyzing mind and what is analyzed are linked together, mutually dependent. It is on the basis of conventional consensus that all investigation is expressed. But when, you say, the process of analysis is made in turn the object of our scrutiny, this investigation likewise may be analyzed, and thus we find an infinite regress. If phenomena are truly analyzed, no basis for analysis remains, and when the object is removed, the subject too subsides. That indeed is said to be nirvana. Those who say that both are true are hard pressed to maintain their case. If consciousness reveals the truth of things, on what grounds, in its turn, does consciousness exist? If knowledge objects show that consciousness exists, what is it that shows that they exist? If both subsist through mutual dependence, both will thereby lose their true existence. If without a son, a man cannot be a father, whence indeed will such a son arise? There is no father in the absence of a son. Just so, the mind and object have no true existence. The plant arises from the seed, you say, and through it is the seed deduced. It's just the same with consciousness arising from its object. How can it fail to show the thing's existence? A consciousness that's different from the plant itself deduces the existence of the seed. But what will show that consciousness exists whereby the object is itself established? In everyday perception, there's a cause for everything. The different segments of the lotus flower arise from a variety of causes. But what gives rise, you ask, to such a variety of causes? An even earlier variety of causes, we declare. And how, you ask, do causes give their fruits? Through power, we answer, of preceding causes. If Ishvara is held to be the cause of beings, you must now define for us his nature. If by this you simply mean the elements, no need to tire ourselves disputing names. Yet earth and other elements are many, impermanent, inert, without divinity, trampled underfoot, they are impure, and thus they cannot be a God omnipotent. The deity cannot be space, inert and unproductive. He cannot be the self, for this we have refuted. He's inconceivable, they say, then likewise his creatorship. Is there any point, therefore, to such a claim? What is it that he wishes to create? Has he made the self and all the elements? But are not self and elements and he himself eternal? And consciousness, we know, arises from its object. Pain and pleasure have, from all time, sprung from karma. So tell us, what has his divinity produced? And if there's no beginning in the cause, how can there be beginnings in its fruits? Why are creatures not created constantly? For Ishvara relies on nothing but himself. And if there's nothing that he has not made, what remains on which he might depend? If Ishvara depends, the cause of all is but the meaning of conditions and not Ishvara. When these obtain, he cannot but create. When these are absent, he is powerless to make. If Almighty God does not intend, but yet creates, another thing has forced him. If he wishes to create, he's swayed by his desire. So even though creator, what of his omnipotence? Those who hold the permanence of particles were indeed refuted earlier. The Samkhyas are the ones who hold that permanent prakriti is the cause of the evolving world. Pleasure, pain, neutrality, so called, are qualities which, when they rest in equilibrium, are termed prakriti. The universe arises when this balance is disturbed. Oh, that's interesting.
Mm.
Ah, just interesting. That last line, the universe arises when this balance is disturbed. Three
Like that can
natures.
be, I just have to say this, that can be like even when we're here in a physical body, like when you're in perfect peace, let's say we can perceive the world like everything is God and you're just peaceful and really we're totally at home, like in our hearts. And there's no other, even though we seem to be going about the world, but then if something happens to unsettle us, basically like our identity gets triggered, then there's a whole world again, whole universe again. Like I think everyone on the spiritual journey knows that, because we have times when we're like totally peaceful and at home in God and like, it's good. And then all of a sudden it's like so it's kind of like maybe it's the same. This is just speculation, but maybe it's the same, out of the body. So like you're at perfect peace and harmony. Whatever. And then like something gets stirred up and then but then the whole process has to start again. Like you need to get so we get to see it. We get to see all that in action really in human form. Like maybe it's a smaller scale or something than like if we were disembodied. So if we don't have a human body, like the same thing is still happening, but maybe still some identity or like desire or something gets triggered. Well, desire like has to be for someone, so it's an identity. As long as there's like identity there, so identity can still be there even without a body, like the idea of identity. And then once something is like out of balance, so that's like out of balance. So then like everything has to get created then.
He's definitely standing on this foundation of having said that a human birth is really rare.
Hmm.
Like, okay, you've got this now. There's
Yeah.
um,
I think a
some.
human birth, I never really understood it, but like right now in this moment, obviously I don't know all what it's like to be all the other animals. But like I do feel like to be a human is amazing because um we get to like reflect like that and really look and see, even scientifically we get to look like right down to the smallest atoms and see like actually there's nothing. But even within ourselves we can do that, when we're just sitting and exploring. That's the same thing as being a scientist really and looking like you're really looking really closely at what things seem to be and you find like there's nothing. Like we keep finding like there's nothing, so then like I think that's amazing and we can kind of in a way like practice over and over again seeing that there's actually no one here. Like there's no identity. And even if when identity seems to come, we can look again. It's like no, no, no. So then maybe like when we don't have a body, we're not going to be as easily swayed if something comes up because maybe something is going to come up when we're like disembodied, for lack of a better word. And something will come up, but we can just because we've had so much practice as a human, you know, really looking and seeing over and over again. No, there's nothing, and we're seeing it in loads of different ways. We can see it through our meditation, or we can see it through science, and there's probably loads and loads of different ways of seeing it, countless ways. So then we won't be tricked, you could say,
Mm,
and then be, we don't need to have this kind of false experience. Really, we can just stay in heaven,
mm,
for lack of better words. Um, Not great
beautiful.
words. Not great words because like heaven has so many ideas
Yeah.
connected to it. But yeah, we can just stay in God. I can't really get out a good word.
The most recent word he's using is balance. It's undisturbed. The
Yeah,
universe is in an undisturbed state.
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Three natures in a unity are disallowed, and thus prakriti is without existence. These qualities likewise do not exist. for each of them is indeed three. If these qualities have no existence, a thing like sound is very far from plausible, and cloth and other mindless objects cannot be the seat of feelings such as pleasure. But, you say, these things possess the nature of their cause. But have we not investigated things already? For you the cause of pleasure and the like, and yet from pleasure, let's say, hang on, for you the cause is pleasure and the like, and yet with pleasure cloth has never sprung. Pleasure, rather, is produced from cloth. If this is non-existent, pleasure likewise. As for permanence of pleasure and the rest, well, there's a thing that's never been observed. If pleasure and the rest are manifestly present, how comes it that they're not perceived? And if you claim they take on subtle form, how is it that they are both gross and subtle?
I like that. Sorry. As for permanence of pleasure and the rest, well, there's a thing that's never been observed. I like that. Like nothing is permanent. All these things, that we things. Exactly, that's enough to say. All things, like in all things, like there's nothing that's permanent. There's a thing that's never been observed.
So what's come up lately is this body is definitely not permanent.
Like definitely not.
Uh,
Body's definitely not permanent, and no,
yeah.
no state, because all states are connected also with the body as well. And so nothing, even like the most blissful love and joy, and even though they seem to be like Muji would say, like the perfume of truth, um, even they're not really permanent because they're still like, well, the way we experience them, because we experience them as a feeling, so it's not permanent, and we'll never experience them as permanent.
Mm.
But like what's beyond that is like it's kind of like indescribable, and that's permanent. There is something that's permanent, but it's not like the way he said it a good few verses back. He said something about it being like unimaginable. So like what's permanent is unimaginable. And I think can have not I think like I know like that we can have a sense of it. We have a sense of it, and we know it in our being, but like we can't put it into words. Somehow it's just so even though we can kind of experience it kind of, but it's an experience beyond all experience. So really you can't even really understand it. You can understand it. You can somewhere in your being it's like understood and known, but like not really. The mind can't do it, and it can't say it, and it tries all different things. It tries all different ways to express, but it just isn't going to do it. So ultimately all things are changing. And I think I'm saying that because I think in spirituality, I think we sometimes seek permanent bliss or something, or a permanent state of uh, a permanent kind of feeling state of peace. But I don't think, like so far in my experience, it's not really like that. I think you can have peace with all things, but like it means that like because in a human expression, anything can happen. And like everything that's arising is all like things of the past, like things that are gone already. But like memories and all are coming up in your body because that's what this whole thing is, like this whole universe. It's already past, so it's like things are going to come, but and we can be peaceful with everything, but maybe there's a something shaking inside or pain and like you said, the body is not going to last. But things happen with the body, so maybe there's going to be a pain, but there can be peace with that. Maybe there's going to be like a heart attack. Oh, I was like, oh, it's okay. Like something deeper. You could say deeper in our being is like at peace with that's okay. So like,
Well,
yeah, things and
I'm
states are not permanent.
I'm resentful as all hell.
What?
I really don't want to die. The body. I no
Yeah.
way. I've been to the doctor a few times
Yeah.
in the last few weeks, and what's come up is just resentment. What what
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Resentment that the body is going to
Yeah,
die. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like one of the stages of death, according to people who've studied it, is like anger. Like,
Yeah.
come on, what the come back. It's not what I signed up for.
Mhm. And I think it's good to like grieve your own death before
Yeah,
before you die. And
yeah.
like Gazelle Muji says, die before you die.
Mm,
And that can mean like a few different things, it means really like your identity dies. But like even with the identity dying, like we can go through the story of the body death, and actually experience your body dying before it dies. So come to terms with like that this body's gonna die and maybe even grieve its death and grieve all the things that it's not going to experience. Like and be with those feelings, you know. Like why not? You can
yeah.
experience it.
And
You're not gonna die anyway, ultimately. Your body is gonna die, but you're
the acceptance was the last stage, right? Is
yeah,
anger, denial, blah 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 blah, followed by acceptance.
yeah. And we can bring acceptance in at any stage. So even though there's lots of different stages, I'm sure there's some famous book, the stages of, well, I think it's the stages of grief, actually, that's name.
Mm, mm.
But even in that book, they say that, so they're listed like this, one, two, three, four, five, and maybe often it's like that, but like they can also come at any point and they switch. Like so, maybe it goes to the last stage, and then back to stage two, and then stage four, and then stage one. So the reason why I say that is that we can bring acceptance in all the time. And I'm feeling like that's like a really important thing. And acceptance is not something that comes from our personal self really, because we can't accept like that identity. It's like its nature is to want to live. And like its whole deal is that like you're a body. I'm a body and I do this and that and I have this quality and that quality and like thousands of qualities and stories and forms and all of that. So um acceptance is just not really part of its makeup.
Well, I mean, to that point, if
Yeah,
I accept that I'm not going to live forever, then I'm not real.
yeah, yeah,
Damn it.
yeah. But yeah, it's not that you're not going to live forever. So like to really accept, acceptance, I think true acceptance comes through seeing things how they really are. Because like acceptance is not coming from that fall to you. It's not coming from an idea of you. Acceptance is kind of flowing through from your true self. So you, it will flow easier like when you see what's true, So you'll see that like, you could see it anytime, but let's say if you're sitting in meditation and you're sitting and like you see that like that's not like that, just this body of Steve, it's really just an idea. Like it's not that difficult to see it. Like if we're honest with ourselves, you can see that there's just like lots of different thoughts and ideas that seem to be making up this character. So when we really see it, it's easier to allow that acceptance to flow. And I know then like we then interact with someone and it seems like, oh, the the idea seems real again. When we're kind of like engaging in the world. But that's the whole point of spiritual practice is to deepen in our true seeing, really. And that it doesn't all come back then, like that sense of identity, it doesn't all come back just when you're in a interaction with someone, and maybe life keeps bringing up things, throwing new things up to say, like, what about this? Will this bring up more identity? What about this? What about this? And I guess these are the big things, if you're faced with the death of your loved ones or like the death of your own body. Like they're quite big ones. Um, but they're something that we all have, that's a part of life. So in a way, I suppose we can be grateful for that and uh, bring acceptance in at every stage as best as we can. Or like, So we can't do acceptance, but we can invite it and we can aspire to accept with whatever is the part that's here right now. So maybe it's just a feeling of like pain in the chest because I'm kind of faced with the idea of my own death, so then to just accept this feeling of pain in the chest, like literally just whatever is showing up in the moment.
Mm.
We can bring acceptance to that. We have the power to that. So we don't have to go through all pain, suffering, pain, and then acceptance will come at the end. Like maybe acceptance will come in 2 years, at the end of that I go through all this. Not like that. It's like acceptance holds your hand every step of the way.
Mm.
And I think that's the better way than waiting for it to just come at the end.
It's beautiful. Acceptance holding my hand every step of the way.
Yeah.
Did that just bubble up?
Not
Oh, it's a beautiful bubbling. Mm.
really, because acceptance is holding your hand all the time. It's just, yeah, choose to acknowledge.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a nice way of putting it. Can I read the verses? Do we have time? Mm,
I think
mm.
we have a little more time.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, please. I
Okay.
think we're 133.
If coarseness is abandoned, subtlety assumed, subtlety and grossness both lack permanence. So why not grant that, in this way, all things possess the character of transience? If the coarser aspect is none other than the pleasure, it's clear that pleasure is itself impermanent. If you claim that what does not exist in any sense, because it has no being, cannot manifest, although you have denied the birth of things that did not previously exist, it's this that you're now saying. But if results exist within their cause, those who eat their food consume their excrement. And likewise with the money they would spend on clothing, let them rather buy the cotton grains to wear. But, you say, the world is ignorant and blind, for this is taught by those who know the truth. This knowledge must be present in the worldly too. And if they have it, why do they not see? If now you say that what the worldly see has no validity, this means that what they clearly see is false. If, you ask, there is no validity in valid knowledge, is not all that it assesses false, and therefore it becomes untenable to meditate on voidness, ultimate reality. If there is no object for analysis, there can be no grasping of its non-existence. And so deceptive objects of whatever kind will also have a non-existence equally deceptive. When therefore in one's dream a child has died, the state of mind that thinks it is no more supplants the thought that it is living still, and yet both thoughts are equally deceptive. Therefore, as we see through such investigation, nothing is that does not have a cause, and nothing is existent in its causes, taken one by one or in the aggregate. It does not come from somewhere else, neither does it stay nor yet depart. How will what confusion takes for truth in any sense be different from a mirage? Things, then, bodied forth by magic spells, and that which is displayed by dint of causes, whence have these arisen, we should ask, and where they go to, that we should examine. What is seen when circumstances meet, and is not seen in absence of the same, is not real. It is like an image in a mirror. How can true existence be ascribed to it? What need is there for cause in something that's already real? But then, what need is there for cause in something that does not exist? Even through 100 million causes, no change takes place in non-existent things. For in that state of non-thing, how could things occur? And into what could non-existent things transform? Since things cannot become when they are non-existent, when could such existent things occur? For insofar as entities do not arise, non-entities themselves will not depart. Now, this is especially for you. And if non-entity is not dispersed, so like you're not even an entity to begin with, so you can't disappear, can't die, because you're not even
Ah.
here to begin with.
Ah.
But we really believe it. Like it's hard to accept even these words, when we're really taking ourselves so much to be the body, and those ideas run very deep, so even if we see the truth, you can't really see the truth, but you have a sense of the experience. The ideas still continue, and they continue deeper and deeper. So as long as we have a life, we can dismantle those ideas more and more and more. And maybe we're not really dismantling them personally for personal reasons because we see that there is no person to begin with. Anyway, so it's not a personal idea, it's you know, an idea in consciousness, you could say. Doesn't really belong to anyone necessarily. But this is saying, I talked about like if someone thinks a child dies, and he probably said that because like that's one of the worst things for us, if a child dies.
Mm.
We haven't lived yet. So then like child dies and it's like so you can suffer that or then maybe we say, oh no, they're still living, they're still living after. And he's saying, well they're both the same thing,
Mm.
like so we need to recognize that like it wasn't ever really at all.
Mm.
So this is really I think it's really I don't know the words, but like deep wisdom you could say. He's really gone for it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
And of course, the more we recognize this, then that will unmerge us and dismantle this idea of a me. So we think we have the idea that there's two bodies here talking now, and like there's voices and things are different. Like this voice sounds different than that voice, and this face looks different than that face, and this one is me, and all these different things. But like none of it's actually here at all. And of course, if none of it's here, then there's nothing to grieve if something disappears. Like if I just, boop, just gone now, like, like if I just disappeared and you never heard me again, you looked me up and like you couldn't find any trace of an Amba. Like it's like she never existed. Okay, it's like you don't see any sign that she died or anything. Just like her name is not on the face of the earth at all. Like, nothing. No, I just imagine something. And then you were so confused, like you looked up trying to find Amba, Ireland. Sure, looking up everything. I was like, no, there's just not a trace of her anywhere. Then you come here, you heard where I'm supposed to live. You came here, everyone was like, no, never heard of her. You call like an Anta and Muji because I talked about them, and they're like, no, I never heard of her. And you're just like, oh, and it's like, just imagine, like, so are you going to grieve that imagination? Maybe, but like, if you really come to accept that it was just an imagination, then maybe like somehow the nature of our humanity, we do grieve things even even when they've been imagined, and even when we know they've been imagined, we grieve them, and that's okay. It's maybe the um just the kind of vessel, it's what this like a human body seems to do. Like the same as like a tree, grows up and grows branches and little sprouts of leaves come out and then flowers. Like that's what it does. So this is what a human kind of instrument does. It grieves and it has all these different like emotions. So we can let all them things happen. Like it's okay, but we don't have to be so engaged with them. Like Amba never existed.
Mm.
Neither did Steve. What a relief. Great. We never even read The Way of the Bodhisattva. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as The Way of the Bodhisattva, even. There's no one who wants to be a bodhisattva. No one needs to get enlightened. Nobody needs to be peaceful. There's nobody. Oh, so peaceful. You have no children, no mother, no father, no 90. Okay, you have a little cry about it. But ultimately, after the cry, what happens after you cry usually? I don't know if you're into crying, but like usually often after you cry, it's just like peace, whatever was
Mm.
feeling. I can talk about this. I can cry, I cry a lot, but like often, not really so much anymore. But like if you cry, it's like maybe there's a feeling inside, something's there, and then it can just like peaceful after. Like that feeling is gone to quiet. It's quiet. Like the tears are like a way to let it go. So we can let that happen all, and that's what we have to do in a way in spirituality or like just life. It's like we have to just let everything happen. We let everything happen, but like it's not happening to anyone because there's no one here. And even like he's been saying this all of these verses, like even those things that are seeming to happen, they're not really happening. But they're seeming to, so that's okay. If they seem to, they seem to. We don't even have to understand it. We really don't.
What what's really working in our exchanges is for
Mm.
me to want whatever it wants to happen, and it's like
Yeah,
aligned with the
yeah,
present moment, if you will.
yeah. That's it. And that's acceptance. Yeah.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
like we're not fighting against what just is, what wants to happen. And
Yeah.
what wants to happen is going to happen.
Not to put labels on it because it doesn't really matter, but I think of that as satsang, that an association with the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Um, mhm.
So glad.
Yeah.
Well, the sun's shining here in Lagos, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
get a walk in later
So
today.
look at you, enjoying the high life.
Are you gonna get out and about a little bit, or do you have things to do around the house now?
Have one or two things to do on my computer, and then I'll probably be in until I have to meet my little boy from school in 3 hours, and then we'll
Okay.
take some time outside together.
Okay. So the two of you are gonna get to play a little bit when you pick him up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. We live near the sea, so we often go to the seaside
Ah,
with some seaside air.
that's great. Yeah. We live by the same ocean, the Atlantic.
Yeah. This is so weird. This thing what happened the other day. My mind is like totally losing it, like more and more. I just say like weird. Like my brain is like totally weird. Anyway, my little boy got a blow up globe, a globe. And I was like, oh, let's look for Ireland. Got the globe, like just looking, like where is it now? And then I was looking like beside Spain and Portugal, and I was just looking for Ireland right beside Portugal, and I was really sure this was the right place to look, like completely convinced. I was like, I was like, no, it's not there. Too small. Because sometimes on maps, like Ireland is too tiny. And I was like, no, it's too small, it's not there. And I was like, okay, fine. And then I realized then after a second or I saw it or something, and then I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I was totally looking in the wrong place. I was convinced. Eshan was laughing at me. Like my brain is like totally losing it. Like but I don't mind, luckily I don't mind. But like all kinds of weird stuff happens, like I just totally forget where my own country is,
Yeah.
where I was born and what I've seen like all the times. Like at least it was close. Like Ireland is just like up. At least I wasn't looking like on the complete other side of the world.
Right.
Another 5 years and I might be looking over there. Oh dear. Luckily, I don't really need to know. Luckily, if I can remember my address, that would be good. As long as I can come home every day, that'll be okay.
Hmm.
Thank you. Enjoy your walk in the sunshine. Be blessed. Be blessed by the sun and the ground and fresh air.
Thank you.
Yes. Enjoy. Enjoy your life today.
I sure will. And we'll shoot for about a month from now, yeah? First of April or so.
Sure. I look forward
Okay.
to it.
Me
Bye.
too. Bye.